Welcome back to the channel. I am your one and only host Slick, and today we are going to be talking about something that I have wanted to touch on for a bit, but I never really had any reason to now, mainly because every time I tried to talk about it, more information came up. You've probably already taken a wild guess from the actual thumbnail what's going to be discussed today, but I want to talk about the video game franchise slash series that was more than just a video game. It was a prophecy. That's right, we're talking about the entirety of the Tom Clancy's The Division franchise. And what's more, as seen in the title, we are going to be bringing in a game developer to talk about the Division franchise. Drumroll, please! It's me. I'm the game developer.
What?
No, all right. I know that sounds bad.
But Slick, you're not a video game creator. This is clickbait. And technically speaking, well, yes, but actually no. No, I am not some high-up game developer who's got years and years of experience working on AAA titles such as like everything that Ubisoft, EA. I don't know why I'm naming these companies. I don't have the experience, but in technicality, I just graduated from a university with a focus on game development, and during that time, I did make 3 video games. They were more like indie projects, but under technicality, I am a video game creator.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
Anyway, now that we have gotten that explanation cleared up and out of the way, let's go over a game developer's thoughts on the Division franchise. Our first segment starts with the very first game, which came out about 5 years too early historically wise. The Division's first game sets you in New York, where some dude has decided he's had absolutely enough of humanity and decides to weaponize the unstoppable lust for money. And makes it worse by making Black Friday the opening act for this bioterrorist attack. You plays a Division agent whose goal is to save what remains, and are part of a second wave of agents activated. I'm not going to go further into the story, such as about the first wave and such, because that's for later, and I don't want to talk about the story because otherwise, this 50+ page script will take me 7 hours. I had to condense it to less. The actual game itself was a lot of fun until major updates such as Incursions, Underground, the best game mode to exist that is survival, Last Stand, Westside Pier, and Resistance modes arrived to the game, making it more fleshed out. I will say, the only DLC for this game, and one of the only 4 DLC I've ever bought for any video games, was the Survival DLC. But I promise to get to that soon. Talking about the game itself, having played some Destiny around the same time, remembering there was some, competition between the two, a good rock'em sock'em, I will say Division hooked me a lot more in the more realistic setting, the cover-to-cover movement and gunplay, and the adaptability with skills and gear for different playstyles. The Dark Zone was a fun concept, and I really wish some streamers didn't just turn it into a run and gun like almost every FPS game, Call of Duty, Battlefield. The base game set up a lot of fun mechanics I thought fit well and were enjoyable. However, I will say as short as some of these sessions can be, survival really took the cake with this game. Survival's implementation of the weather and temperature, cosmetics actually having an impact on your warmth and ability to survive in the cold, scavenging for the antivirals, and then the hunters. Oh man. First time we ever laid eyes on those things. Survival was probably the best game mode of Division 1, and frankly, I do wish some of the mechanics were implemented in the base game. I think seeing the temperature having an effect, as well as cosmetics actually having that temperamental control as well, would have been really interesting to be implemented into the game. The only major downside I see, which is fair, would be paid DLC cosmetics. I mean, think about it. If you're going to throw money at this game, you want it to be worth it. But you also don't want to give the short end of the stick to the base players who don't pay for cosmetics. Because then, everyone's going to say the game is pay to win, nobody's going to want to play, it's a catch-22. Which is why I'm fine with the way it came. especially when you consider that adding a temperature value for certain times of day, certain environments, meant that programmers and developers would need to spend time assigning temperature values to every practical environment and area on New York and factor in the randomized time, randomized temperatures, and such like that. Imagine the fact that the people who made the survival game mode had to actually sit and program temperature values for every practical inch of New York. You have a base to idea temperature everywhere, insides with no wind and such being warmer, the fire pits being warm enough. I mean, I could go on about this. It would have been a genuine pain to set that up, especially that once West Side Pier was added too, and I don't blame the developers for ignoring this. Regardless, Division 1 was still a great staple and really set the groundwork for the other games in the franchise. I cannot complain. Now, we're going to move on to the next game to release. Tom Clancy's COVID-2 Electrobuga. Wait. Am I even allowed to say that? Tom Clancy's The Division 2 is a continuation of the franchise. It takes place about 6 months later in the summer of 2016. The focus in this game is not so much the actual green poison, but rather Washington, D.C.'s handling of the green poison and a quite literal war for the capital of the United States of America. I do off the bat want to show the fact that I appreciate the new classification of rifles and the improvement of the shotguns during the last Castle update which brought the Pentagon, as well as specializations. The specialization system not only provided a more unique way to go into certain playstyles, but it also added variety and different skills and weapons, not weapons really, but attachments and such, that really changed how the game was kind of looked at. The addition of control points, patrols, convoys, and scouts added a lot more atmosphere to Washington, D.C. that I feel New York kind of lacked. The armor upgrade, which provided a target for players to destroy in order to get to enemy health pool, provided some nice changes to the straight bullet sponges from Division 1. However, it still required mag dumps into targets. Dividing the Dark Zone into 3 separate locations, each with their own ideal playstyles in mind, was a touch that I think was not only controversial, but in a hot take added variety. Too large of a Dark Zone, and there's not a lot of PvPvE going on, as we saw at the end of Division 1. Smaller, more contained locations allowed for firefights to happen much more frequently and keep everyone on their toes. The endgame concept was decent, but once Warlords of New York dropped, the whole game got really interesting. Being able to hunt down rogue agents and go after Aaron Keener was fun, although I do wish he would have survived and remained the main antagonist for longer. Although, we did get more into the Black Tusk and their nefarious schemes. I will definitely say that Division 2's addition of raids and 8-player game modes, even Countdown, which is a brand new addition, well, brand new quote unquote as in last season, Season 9's edition, I do think they were very interesting and I like the concept of raids. However, I do think that both of the raids are excessively difficult for people who are not familiar with this kind of game to get into, which is fair, that's what it's meant to do. I do wish though that some of these raids catered not so much towards saying, oh, only this kind of playstyle such as all DPS builds are the only way to play. I do wish that there was some viability for skill builds to be in this game, and my reason being that having skill builds around, while it would seem like a cheaper thing, would allow for more balance. You could have more than just all DPS and maybe 1 or 2 tanks in an 8-person party. You could now have a designated crowd control, a designated heal. Like, I know there's a lot of people who have said, hey, this is a build that works, but it mostly relies on having certain crowd control that also relies heavily on DPS. For example, I'm talking about the Crusader shield with the Blinder Firefly, or whichever one it is that blind or dazes enemies. Yes, that has been a very effective one in both of the raids, especially in Dark Hours. However, I do genuinely think that skill builds are still just kind of scorned and laughed upon in the raids. The other thing I did want to quickly touch on while I had a moment was the fact that I do find the manhunt system to be kind of lackluster, personally. I don't like that we're basically repeating missions. We are doing the same things over and over and over again just to be able to pick up audio logs and hunt down a certain target. I do like Season 9 and Season 10's brand new approaches and the way they have minimized the number of targets and stuff you have to do to get to these certain targets. However, I do still feel like it is very boring. And in a very, very agreeable take that I know some people have said, I do not think the Division 2 should be continuing beyond this year 5 so and so. I understand that the story is really built for the Division 2 characters. However, I really do think that there is not enough new content to keep players constantly going. You are having players come in every time there is new intel, new targets. They come in, they do it. They come in for the apparel events if they want to. And then that's it. They don't touch the game again until the next season. And pretty soon, even those people are going to be burnt out and stop altogether. I think the story should continue. I am hooked on the story. It's one of the reasons I have continued to play the Division game for so long, Division 2 especially, because I love the story. I am immersed. I want to see how this ends. However, I really do think that even though it would feel weird, I do think that we should get a new Division 3. I think that we should have a Division 3 come out, have an entirely new location, have a new character, a new agent to play, a whole level up from 1 to 30 all over again, and from there to be able to continue the mission of the agents from Washington DC. We could probably have like an end of the season thing where like end season 10 and 11 and the I guess year 5 off with like a, hey, Washington DC is now more than just a war zone. Black Tusk have successfully controlled DC. And I don't want to say any more than that because obviously there's a lot of spoilers and I've already spoiled enough as it is. But I genuinely do think that it would be nice to have a new game, new game modes, new level up, more content to do fresh and not just login, control points, bounty, side missions, manhunt target. That's it. Like, give us more. Give us something fresh. Give us something new. Give us a new location. But I'm going to talk more about my thoughts of Division 3 later. I just wanted to get that out now. I do want to go into the new games that have been announced and that we're expecting to get into soon. So let's go ahead and move over to that. No longer talking about the actual games that we physically have, I do want to now talk about what has been announced coming up. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is Tom Clancy's Division Heartland. Heartland is supposed to be a free-to-play game, which is already concerning to hear because I already think of more in-game purchases that probably involve more randomized results than casinos rigged against you, but I'm not going to even touch that. Heartland, despite having little to no footage or information, we know to be a PvPvE game set within Silver Creek, which is a small rural town in the northwest of America. Which, if you look it up and ignore all of the schools and retirement homes named Silver Creek along the entirety of the United States, you land in Oregon. So we'll assume Heartland is taking place in Oregon. The info we know is that there are 2 game modes, 3 available classes, and 6 playable characters at launch. Right off the bat, I will say this sounds concerning to me because this sounds like preset character models and designs, which isn't bad, but may discourage some players given we've always had full customization. Since I don't really know anything else at this time of recording, I'm just going to say that I'm hoping Heartland is a solid free-to-play experience that not only welcomes and invites more players into the franchise, given the potential this series has, but it provides us more lore than what we just have from New York, which was Ground Zero, as well as Washington, D.C., the literal heart of the nation. I do think Heartland has a lot of potential, and I want to see what this provides. The one thing I've had to rewrite this pretentious excuse of a script 3 to 4 times now is the new and upcoming, albeit nobody frickin' asked for, Tom Clancy's mobile game, Division Resurgence. This is the second Tom Clancy mobile game I know of, and the first one, Elite Squad, was definitely more of a Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes type of game that was somewhat decent and alright. I had fun with it, so... Anyways, Division Resurgence I know little to nothing about, except that it's set before the events of Division 1, and you play as first wave agents. While I am interested to see what it contributes to the story, I have two main issues. The first being that this game is only going to be on mobile. So those who don't want to play an FPS title on their phones are going to miss out. I would have liked it if even PC and Switch got it, despite the fact I am a broke boy and don't own a Switch, so others can experience it in less chaotic and painful methods, but whatever. The other issue I have is that this game is supposed to be during the activation of the first wave agents in New York, and they have specializations. The agents in Division 1 never had specializations. None of them. So while I get it's bringing Division 2 mechanics into this game, it really kind of breaks lore and immersion for me personally. I would have thought it better for them to refer more to Division 1 more so than Division 2 for mechanics and such when the game is meant to be a prologue to Division 1. Oh, but what do I know? I'm just a game developer who graduated from university. It's not like I have the brain cells to notice potential flaws from game development companies that produce AAA games or whatnot. Oh wait! I do! So for you, this is just going to basically be like a continuation of the Division Resurgence, but for me, I'm realizing that I completely forgot when I was initially recording all the audio stuff that I forgot to talk about a very big point that I also wanted to bring up. And so this is definitely a bruh moment. So I'm taking a moment now while in the middle of editing to kind of go back, record this, and rectify that and add this into the video. But one of the other issues I do have with Division Resurgence is the fact that, you know, it's like, oh hey, there is a dark zone. Like, I get it. The dark zone is a core concept for the Division franchise. However, the fact that it looks like the dark zone is already well established and already well going, I don't like that because of the simple fact that lore-wise it doesn't make sense. The dark zone was originally a main containment zone within the events of the first wave and the JTF's first attempts, and then around the time that all the first wave agents started either dying or going rogue and the JTF pulled out of this area was when the dark zone was closed off and all of that happened. The original trailer footage, at least from what I'm re-reviewing in some ungodly late hours of the night as I'm editing this because I don't know why, but it really just looks and feels like the dark zone is just going to be the same as Division 1, as if it's already been established, it's already there, and I don't really think that that's a good thing. So I know you're expecting some kind of funny haha meme or something in the middle of this to kind of just be a little lighthearted and a little more to my humorous side, but genuinely speaking, I am not very hopeful or expecting much from Resurgence. I know I should not probably be posting this or recording this super late at hours, but I genuinely do not think that Resurgence, especially as a mobile game, is that great of an idea. Do I like the idea of delving into the first wave agents and what went wrong? Yes, I do. However, I really do not think that this should have been delegated as a simple mobile game that most people are going to either ignore or not really put heart and soul into. And I really think they should have taken, I don't know how long the game's been in development, but I really think that they should have taken more time to flesh out the lore for this kind of stuff before diving into it. Because it really just feels like a cheapskate kind of, hey, we're having all the mechanics from all the original games, and now it's like, great, that's cool and all, but this feels like a break of continuity. I don't know, if you this is late at night, me saying this, and when this video goes up, I will probably regret this comment, but if you disagree with me, please go ahead and feel free to voice it in the comments down below, and tell me if you think you're actually excited for Resurgence or something, because I don't know, so, you know. Anyway, that's enough of me rambling in the middle of the edit. Let's go back to the original recorded video. Bye. I want to take a moment quickly to kind of recompose and apologize if the last section seemed really aggressive. As many of you can probably tell, I'm not a fan of mobile games that are basically the equivalent of what is on a PC or console. I think it's stupid. But now that I have taken about 15-20 minutes IRL to actually get up, walk away, and kind of breathe, even though for you guys it'll be like 5-10 seconds, now I want to sit and I want to talk about thoughts and a little bit of speculation, more so like ideas about Division 3. There have been no rumors, there has been no word, so this is all purely just me. Like, if there was a Division 3, what would I do? How would I go about it? What kind of recommendations would I make? And I know you guys heard this a bit during the Division 2 section, but I really do kind of want to solidify it more. So, Division 3, I definitely think Division 3 should be the continued story after all of the manhunts of Division 2. I do not think Division 2 should try to go on longer than Year 5, and my main reasoning is because of the fact that I do feel like having so much in Division 2 in terms of story just be exclusively behind manhunts really takes away potential for more content, for more opportunity. And I do actually think it would be more interesting personally to see the stakes really go up if we say, like, hey, the Black Tusk just completely came in and have basically decimated most of Washington, D.C. It's still standing, but it's like the Black Tusk are getting an advantage and they're beginning to take the country. Or show other aspects, show other portions of the country suffering and dealing with the Black Tusk. Maybe, like, I think it'd be fitting. I know that in Division 2, we actually get a snippet of the Golden Bridges on the West Coast. I don't really think we need California in this game. There's not really... California doesn't bring much to the United States other than tropical beaches in Hollywood and Silicon Valley, which isn't going to be important for Division. I know a lot of people and myself have talked about possibilities of other cities such as Chicago or even Miami/Orlando. Like, those would be cool sites. But if you really think about it in hindsight, Chicago doesn't really bring much to the table, and neither... Miami, you could kind of get away with it, saying that Miami is kind of the port city that all of these ships are coming in and going out, and now that people are starting to kind of, you know, maybe it's been a while and people are starting to come in and out again and do normal travel, Miami has basically become a location that the Black Tusk have locked down, and the Division needs to retake it from them in order to be able to get out to the people and the public. I don't know. I do think, however, that I would like to actually see a more historically important state or city for Division 3. If we were to close off the whole Black Tusk story, I think apart from Washington, D.C. being the capital, and we already had New York, which had the United Nations building and all of the important stuff there, I think Pennsylvania or even Massachusetts would be really nice states to see in Division 3. I could go into all the US history and stuff and why I think they're so super significant, but if I do that, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to ramble for 50 minutes plus. So we're just going to simplify and say Pennsylvania or Massachusetts, maybe even just specifically Boston, Massachusetts. I think the two of those would be really nice places to have in Division 3. Now, what would I do as a storyline for Division 3? I would make it that the we already know from the manhunts, and this is kind of a spoiler, but also not really, that the True Sons have started picking up operations across the world. We could potentially see the True Sons as an endgame faction along with the Black Tusk, or maybe True Sons show up halfway through the game, kind of thing. Make a resurgence. There's other groups that you could make. I mean, all the games have very similar recipe of enemies. You've got the local light rioters slash looters, rioters in Division 1, hyenas in Division 2. You've got the crazy kind of fanatics that are using fire for some reason to burn out the plague or weaponize it. I mean, look at the cleaners from Division 1 and look at the outcasts from Division 2. And then you've got the PMC slash defected JTF guys who you've basically got like the militaristic dudes who think that the best way to fix the country is to rule it with an iron fist. Please see the LMB and please see the True Sons. The only group that doesn't really fit into any of this currently, but still kind of, would have been the Rikers from New York. So, but it made sense to have Rikers in New York, and there wasn't really any kind of prisons in Washington, D.C. Although, on a side note, if we were to have Miami, it would be kind of cool to have, like, prisoners from Guantanamo Bay or something come from Cuba all the way to Miami as, like, the enemy archetypes, as, like, an equivalent to the Rikers. I'm not actually promoting this IRL. I want to make that clear. Please don't do that. But, in-game, it would have been interesting. But, going back to it, like, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, you could have a kind of group, something along the lines of, like, you need a rioting slash looting group. You can get some crazy fanatical group that believes that, like, fire or something needs to be used and just burn out the plague still. And you need some sort of militaristic group, which could still be the True Sons, or you could even just start throwing in Black Tusk at that point in the game. But I think the Division 3 would definitely focus, besides making sure that the city does remain, because you could say that the Division had control of the city, lost it when the True Sons came in, and then regained it or something, or regaining it now. Like, change it up. Don't just have, like, oh hey, like, they did absolutely not. Like, Washington DC was still fighting for it and was losing it because the other groups were getting a foothold. Do something similar with Division 3. Enemy came, basically retook, like, captured most of it, and now it's like, alright, we need to retake it back. Endgame content could actually be picking up what happened with DC. Maybe it's like, at that point, you're getting the transmission that Washington, D.C. has fallen from Kelso, and all the intel that they have is being transferred out to all the Isaac nodes around the entire world. Pennsylvania maybe is like the major backup for the whole world and has the nodes, so they're the next target. Or Massachusetts, I don't know. I'm sticking with Pennsylvania for now. And I think it'd be interesting, just kind of have like a, Washington, D.C. is mostly fallen. The enemy is coming for us here. We need to take the fight to them. This is where we make our push, our aggressiveness, and then bring back the idea of, like, that we had with those excursions to other locations, like we had with Kentley College, the Camp White Oak, even heck the expansions to New York with Warlords in New York, as well as the Coney Island episode. Give us stuff where we can go. Like, I wouldn't say go back to New York. I mean, it would be iconic, sure, but I feel like New York is just constantly beating a dead horse at this point. Take us back to, like, Washington, D.C. Take us to the capital. Let us see how much worse it has gotten in however long from 2 to 3. Let us see what the Black Tusk have been doing. Let us see what the True Sons have been doing, assuming we don't just kick them all to the curb. So, I mean, and I think Division 3... I'm going to be honest, I think Division 3 should be it, and the very, very last update to the game should be going after Natalia Sokolova and the Black Tusk in their main headquarters. Whether that's here in the US, or hell, even in Russia, because we know Sokolova is Russian and has been running the Sokolov Concern company that's been making the gear. So, just That would be story-wise what I would do, and I know that this is not really game mechanics, and you're probably wondering, well, where's the actual game developer side with the mechanics stuff? Well, I already talked about the whole temperature stuff in Division 1. I didn't really have much to comment anything else. Division 2, I talked about the specializations a little bit, well, very little, and I talked about the atmosphere stuff, but game development is more than just, oh, mechanics. Oh, like, oh, game development is not just mechanic. I know I already said this. Game development is more than just mechanics and visual. Game development also requires storytelling, atmosphere building, like world building, all the all the world building, all of the actual storytelling and story writing, the actual concepts that go into making the game, the actual programming of all the different mechanics and such, the animations that go into every single character, the actual lively atmosphere that is created, and the environments that you get to see drawn out or modeled into the world. Everything is game development. So I apologize that I'm spending a lot of time talking about the story aspect, but I want to have a good story. A game to me needs a better story than mechanics instead of really solid mechanics and a shit story. And that to me is, well, the ideal game is a perfect balance of phenomenal mechanics, phenomenal storytelling. Like, a lot of people praise Red Dead Redemption 2 for its very good mechanics, its very good storytelling, its atmosphere, etc. A lot of people have praised Division 1 out of the entirety of the franchise because the mechanics were solid. Could have been worked on, but it was the first entry of the franchise. It had a pretty good atmosphere and environment that was built on, and more stuff came in with Division 2. And a lot of people liked that. And that's why I think that, like, talking about the story is just as important as talking about the mechanics. Now, let's actually talk briefly about mechanics, because otherwise somebody's going to be like, well, you didn't even touch on this when you touched on it everywhere else. So we're going to keep the specializations from Division 2. We're going to keep all the usual cover to cover. I would like to keep the armor system. I do think the armor plating instead of health thing was nice, even though the health we still have. I would definitely say I would like for enemies to be a little less bullet spongy, but that's a lot to ask for coming from me. Division 2 had 9 separate skills, each of them with their own unique kind of like 3 variants / versions that brought different ideas to the table, plus the base. So, and then Division 2 had like, I think it was 12 or something? Was it like 12 skills or was it less? I could be 12, could be somewhere around there. Like about 12 skills. And you had like 4 to 5 variations on each of these skills. There was a lot more to work with. I would like to see Division 3 have a combination of skills from Division 1 and Division 2. So like, for example, support station. Bring back the support station. Maybe, this is going to sound weird, take out the hive, bring back the support station. That's just an example, don't get mad. Deployable cover. I thought that was interesting. I know a lot of people didn't use it, but it has its potential at times. So I think, you know, it could be brought back maybe. That other ability where you just gave buffs to the current cover you were currently in, I think that was stupid. I never used that ever. So, sorry. Don't care. The turret is very iconic. Keep it. The drone is something a lot of people have liked. Keep it. Sticky bomb. Keep it. That's not a question. Like, work with what we have and add a couple more. Like, I can't come up with any skill ideas off the top of my head for this, but I would say like maybe if we could have I definitely think a variation for the shield that would allow you to use like a certain ability thing to blind enemies, kind of like the Rikers do in Warlords of New York. That is something a lot of people have mentioned. I think that'd be interesting as a variation, but I would make that a specialization exclusive variation, because otherwise, oh boy. I do definitely think that there is a lot of potential in new potential skills out there, even though most of them feel like they've been used. Like, come on, you can come up with something new, probably. Um, no, but that's really all I wanted to say about Division 3 and my thoughts on it, I guess. I don't know. I'm just rambling at this point. But overall, I do think that Division 3 should at least be the last main title of the franchise to give us that fresh breath of new content, new stuff to do, and be a fun way to close out the story with a new agent instead of just manhunt, manhunt, manhunt until the story is over and just let Division 2 and the whole Division story basically die on its legs in like year like what 7 to 10, somewhere in that range, because I feel like they're just milking it at this point. Give it a good solid ending is all I ask. All in all, I do think that in the 6 years that it has currently existed, Tom Clancy's The Division franchise has really set a very nice tone for its franchise as a whole, as well as kind of bringing that sort of Tom Clancy realism and storytelling of what if to the board. Division 1 really set the ground for the entirety of the franchise and had a lot of great mechanics as well as a pretty good story that most people enjoyed. I do definitely think that the endgame content was plentiful. However, there was a lot of it that felt locked behind DLC because most of the incursions were locked along with major DLC such as the Underground, which a lot of people enjoyed after its updates, as well as Last Stand. Survival was a game mode that everyone really loved and seemed to be like, this is what we expected from a Division 1 game. And I don't blame them. However, there are a lot of little challenges is the nice word I'll put with it, with making survival basically have been the premonition for the entirety of the base game. We already talked about it a little bit, but otherwise, the gunplay was solid. The actual talents in the weapons, the actual gear sets, how everything worked, I do think was a very good foundation. There's not a lot of commentary I can say negatively about the first game. There are days that I wish I could go back and play the first game, but I've been so spoiled and so busy with Division 2's manhunts as well as with other games, I don't have the chance. That, and I'm also really burnt out since I basically have collected almost all but one of the exotics, and I'm too tired of farming for classified gear sets. Division 2, definitely, I will say, it's the Division 2 launched in 2019, and I do want to go ahead and admit straight up because someone will have said this in the comments during Division 2 section. I know that I basically said the Division 2 was going into a year 5 when in reality it's more of like it's been a year 3 and they're going into year 4. I mean, year 1 was all the base content stuff, year 2 was the Warlords of New York, year 3 was more Manhunt stuff that we're kind of getting. But I do genuinely feel like the Division 2 has reached its last legs. I do think that we're just beating a dead horse. The game is great, don't get me wrong. There have been a lot of great additions, such as the new gear brand system. I do like that. Definitely add more viability to builds. The the way that they handled exotics, I kind of disagree a little bit. I think you should have been able to have two exotics maximum, whether it's two gear, two weapon, one gear, etc. But that's me personally. I do like the addition of specializations. It really changed a lot for the game and the way that people built their playstyles and, named weapons and perfected talents, really do also kind of make things fun. The atmosphere is a lot more, in my opinion, better with the addition of control points, the patrols, etc. Um, the actual weapon classifications and the more liveliness around the world is definitely something that I think should have been a little bit more focused in the first game, but also at the same time, I think the first game had it just right. Division 2's time framing also makes more sense. I am interested in seeing what happens with Heartland as well as Resurgence. However, I will admit I am definitely afraid for Resurgence. Heartland has a very good possibility, but has a chance of falling short, so time will tell. I am thinking about doing a review of these games, but I really don't care enough for Resurgence. I am going to admit it. I will not be playing Division Resurgence. I'm saying this now. Unless they make a free PC version, since they're making it free on mobile as far as I know, I will not be playing Resurgence. So I will actually just be watching people play it on YouTube and getting all my lore from YouTube instead of actually going and finding it myself and then just making sure that watching videos like Masterminds HD and NGN are basically along the same train of thought that I am, and making sure that I have everything. So, I do I do think Heartland has opportunity. I do think that Resurgence, although minimal, has a potential as well. I'm not a fan of Resurgence, but I do think that there is potential. That being said, I have already put out my wish list for Division 3 and what I think would be great additions or great ways to kind of build up the game. But overall, just not even mechanics wise, I know I haven't spoken much about mechanics, but story wise, I do think that the Division is coming to a close. We are getting very close to the end of the Division franchise, and I think it'd be kind of poetic slash fitting if we found out the Division 3 was actually coming out at the end of 2022, 3-year cycle, and that, we were going to get the final updates of the game in 2025, and that would be it. I mean, you'd have a almost 10-year franchise running. I mean, Division 1 launched in March 8th, 2016. Division 2 launched in February 7th, 2019. I really do think that if we had gotten the game to launch in January of 2022, it would have been hysterical. But, I can dream. But I see why they're adding stuff to Division 2. But all I really have to ask is, please, developers, do not just give us manhunts. Do not just give us repeat the same missions and locations. Give us a new location. Give us new stuff. You made a whole new expansion with Warlords in New York, and it was phenomenal. It was loved. It brought the game back from near the grave. When you do the finale for this game and potentially for Division franchise as a whole, all we are asking is for something on the caliber of Warlords in New York. That's all we ask for. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to call it here for the video. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed my very, very, very long rambles. That should not have been this long. At least it felt longer to me because I have been spending the last 4 hours recording and re-recording because I have screwed up what I was trying to say and getting the point across. I know that this is technically not a video game video, but also a gaming video at the same time. I am trying to branch out from just gaming stuff on the channel, and I am hoping to cover some new stuff. So, um, I know I do a lot of talking about storytelling and such, and I do kind of want to admit that I am getting to a point where I am considering adding videos talking about world building, storytelling, and such like that onto the channel and using things from video games, movies, TV shows, and even D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, if you don't know, as examples for this and segues. I am thinking about it. Let me know what you guys think about this possibility in the comments. I don't want to just be a gaming only channel, so I would like to try and branch out and try new stuff. Random, I know, but we will see what comes out. And now that I have basically talked my ear off and a half, and I hate talking by myself on these videos, thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment at least telling me what you think about this whole ramble. Let me know if you agree, if you disagree. Make me feel like I'm not alone, Share this video with friends. Post it to Reddit if you feel like it. Have some Reddit forum discussions. I'm not going to complain. Hell, I'm on Reddit. I might post this on Reddit myself. And, just I would like for the Division community to come together and genuinely have fun. And let's hope that the franchise ends well. But that'll be it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I've already done this outro enough times. Leave a like, comment down below, subscribe, and let's see if we can get to enough subscribers I can start doing community posts. You guys take care. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay tactical. Slick out.